Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name's Amanda if you're new. Today's What's for Dinner is featuring 3 crockpot dinners plus chocolate lava cake in the crockpot. If you're excited for this What's for Dinner, go ahead and hit that like button and don't forget to hit subscribe if you haven't already and the notification bell so you don't miss out on any other recipes. So let's get to the crockpot beef roast. So I like to sear my roast whenever I can. So that's what I'm doing here. I've got some oil in the pan and I'm just placing the beef roast into the pan. Make sure you heat it on about medium heat. This is a chuck roast. So I'm just going to sear it on each side and get it nice and caramelized. That's going to bring out those flavors. It's going to lock in the juices. And then I'm going to place that in the crock pot. This one was kind of big, so I kind of had a little bit of trouble getting it in there. I was trying to kind of finagle it a little bit to get it to fit just right. So once I get that situated, I'm just going to go ahead and also put the drippings from the pan that was left over and pour that over the roast so that you don't miss out on any of those flavors. Also make sure if you want to add any seasonings to the roast when you sear it, salt and pepper, any kind of other things you like to do. So I've got this roast in here. I'm going to add about a half a packet of onion soup mix. You could do the whole packet. I watch the salt, so I do about half, just so it's not quite as much. Since I do half of the packet, I like to add extra of the dried minced onion. That way I get plenty of that onion flavor. And you can just do what you like. You can also add, fresh onion to this. This is just kind of what I like to do on my roast a lot of times. This tends to be my standby on what I tend to do most of the time, but every now and then I try to change it up a little too. So I've just got some beef broth going in here, probably about a cup and a half. I just always like to add it when I make it this way. So we're going to put the lid on this, and you can cook this for, so I've done it different ways. I've cooked it overnight before on low. I've cooked it on high. This time I cooked it on high, I think for about somewhere between 4 and 6 hours. I just made sure it got really tender. And as you can see, you can see all those onions on there. You can see all our juice in there. And then you can see it's just breaking right apart. Like, it is so tender. So this turned out so well. I always like doing roast in the crock pot. It just seems like a lot of times it turns out more tender in the crock pot. So I had some of these carrots actually frozen from cutting them up in the freezer, and I just sprinkled some olive oil on them and then also some Tuscan garlic seasoning blend, and then I baked them in the oven. I believe it was on 400 for just like maybe 15 minutes. Just keep an eye on them and make sure till they get to your liking. So I made mashed potatoes and gravy also with this. This was so delicious. I always love a good crock pot roast. It really is comfort food. And you can do so many things with leftovers. You can make soup. You can do the open face roast beef sandwiches. You can, turn it into all kinds of different things. So it's a versatile meal. So next I have Crockpot Sesame Chicken. So I'm just taking 3 chicken breasts and I'm dicing them up into bite-sized pieces. Now, the recipe actually calls for 4 chicken breasts, but I only had 3 in the package I had, so I just went ahead and made it do, and that was fine. Next, this was so good, though, that I will say that next time I'm probably just going to double the whole recipe because it was amazing. I could not believe how good it was. I really wasn't expecting that. So while I'm finishing up cutting this chicken, I do want to say I'm sorry for being a little absent on YouTube. I had meant to get a video out quite a bit before now, and I try to post every single week. Unfortunately, I hurt my knee about a little over a week ago, and I have been hobbling around, and it's been very difficult to cook or film. So I hope you enjoy this one. I kind of try to pick easy meals so I wasn't on my leg quite as much as I usually am, and then that way I can kind of let my knee heal, and it's doing so much better. Still not 100%, but it's almost there. So but this, like I said, this meal, I cannot believe how good it was. Like, and you could use, I think, boneless, skinless chicken thighs, if you wanted to use that as well. That actually might hold up a little better in the crock pot too, just because that sometimes it's easy to overcook chicken breasts in the crock pot or any way of cooking actually. So in this bowl, I'm making the sauce to go over the chicken. I've got the recipe calls for a cup of soy sauce. I used half beef broth and half soy sauce so that I could cut the sodium down. There's also rice wine vinegar, sesame oil, honey, brown sugar, red pepper flakes, and garlic powder. So we're just going to add all these ingredients in and get this all whisked up. Now I will say I used just a smidgen less brown sugar and a smidgen less red pepper flakes than the recipe called for, just because I didn't want it to be too spicy and I also didn't want it to be too sweet. but I used pretty close to the amounts. I think you could definitely play with that a little bit and do how you like for that. So we're just going to get that all good and dissolved. Make sure that brown sugar gets mixed in well. And then we're going to pour that over the chicken in the crock pot. And it's going to actually cook, well, the instructions said to cook on low for 2 to 3 hours, or until chicken is cooked, through. I went ahead and turned it on high because I was trying to get it done kind of quickly. And, I ended up having, I think probably maybe 2 hours is what I cooked it for. Now, I do feel like the chicken probably overcooked just a little. So I definitely would either try to cook it on low next time or cut back a little of the time and check it earlier. So I'm just making some rice to go along with this. This rice, I did not get every step of making it since I was making a few different elements, but it's a super great recipe. Turns out fluffy every time. Definitely check that out. I have it in the description box below. And I'm also trying out this method of green beans that I found. Like, I wish I had the whole green beans, but I just had the cut ones. So I kind of did my own thing, but I'll link the recipe that I kind of went by in the description box. But I've just got olive oil, and you actually place these under the broiler. I'm trying to get them kind of like the green beans from the Chinese restaurants. Like, they have kind of that crispy, I don't know. It's kind of, they're so good. Like, I love those green beans. And so this recipe had you broil them. Now, it did have you make a sauce and stuff like that, and I didn't do that. I just went ahead and once they were broiled, I actually sauteed them in a couple of tablespoons of butter. And I added some onion powder and garlic powder to it. Now, you can feel free to add whatever seasonings you want. Salt, pepper, anything at all that you'd like to flavor them with. I just chose those because I knew I was going to have that sauce from the Sesame Chicken, and I didn't want to overwhelm with too much flavor with that. But I've got this going here. I just kind of, they're already done really since they're broiled. I'm just kind of letting them, get those flavors from the onion powder and the garlic powder and the butter and everything, and get it all good and mixed together. We really liked these green beans. They turned out really well. They did not turn out exactly like, the Chinese restaurants, but they were really good. So this is the rice I'm talking about. So fluffy every time. It's like a perfect rice recipe, and it's so easy. It's just 1.5 cups of water for every 1 cup of basmati rice. Now, I think it's more about the method it does. So it's more about the way you cook this that makes it turn out so fluffy. So make sure to check out that recipe for sure. It's really good. So the recipe said if you want to thicken the sauce, go ahead and get just the chicken out separately. Leave the liquid behind. We're going to put that liquid in a pot and bring it to a boil. And then I'm going to thicken it with a cornstarch slurry. Now, I know some recipes have you thicken it in the crock pot, and that may definitely work. I have never tried that before because this is the first time I made anything like this. But if you've done that before and you know it works, then definitely go ahead and do that. But while we're on the topic of Chinese food, Asian food, what is your favorite meal from a Chinese restaurant? Whether it's a, combination kind of some things, or, just one dish that you really love, the thing that you absolutely crave when you want Chinese food. Let me know in the comments below. So I've got that sauce done, and I've just poured it over the chicken, and I'm just really so impressed with this recipe. My daughter, she kept saying that this is one of the best things I've ever made. Everybody enjoyed it. It was so very good. I wished I'd had some egg rolls and cream cheese wontons. That would have made it perfect because I love those too. But I highly recommend you, if you only make one recipe out of this video, please make this. It is so very good. So next we have Crockpot Chili. Now I'm starting here with some onion. I'm going to dice that up. I don't really have a recipe of sorts for my chili. I just kind of throw in what's good, and I'd actually change it depending on my mood. I've actually even chopped up in a blender veggies even to put in it, cauliflower, broccoli, carrots, that kind of stuff. So that packs in that more nutritional punch of adding veggies to it, even more veggies. So I've done that. I do it all kinds of different ways. So this is just one of the ways that I make it. We just always really enjoy chili, and it's great to use on so many things. You can make chili dogs or whatever you might like to do with it. So Frito bowls with the Fritos and chili. So lots of good options for chili for sure. So I'm doing this in the crock pot as well. I have my meat here that I have frozen that I already prepared. If y'all have seen that video where I prep hamburger meat and put it in the freezer, I'll link that below as well. That is such a convenience for sure. I've just thrown that in there frozen. I'm adding in my onion. Now we like a lot of onion, so obviously if you don't like onion, you definitely don't have to put that in there. I've got 2 cans of petite diced tomatoes that are going to go in here. And again, this is one of those areas where you can change it up. I tend to like the smaller tomatoes because they're not quite as noticeable in the chili. But I've also, in the past, used the larger size dice too. So really, whatever you like. You could do tomato sauce if you don't want chunks at all. Definitely, make it your own. And I want to make quite a bit this time, so I actually added extra of everything. I've got 2 cans of pinto beans going in here. Now with the pinto beans, I leave the liquid in there, but I do drain the liquid from the kidney beans. So I'm also going to add 2 cans of kidney beans in here, and I use the dark. Just a question, I know there's light kidney beans. Is there a difference? Like, I don't think I've ever had light kidney beans, and I'm just kind of wondering if there's a taste difference or what the difference is there. So if anybody knows, let me know. I'm using 1 package of the McCormick chili mix, and then I add my own additional spices, especially since I'm almost kind of doubling this. Not quite, but kind of. And I've got some beef broth going in here as well. Probably, a cup or 2. It kind of depends on just how everything looks when it gets in there. I'm adding some minced garlic and some garlic powder, onion powder. I've got some various chili powders that are going in here. I like a lot of the spices from Penzeys, and I recently got Spice House, I think is what it is too. So I've got some from there. I love to try to experiment with different spices. So I've got a few different ones going in here. You can definitely, again, make it your own, whatever your favorite spices are, whatever your favorite chili powders are. And of course, adding a little cumin in there as well. A lot of the same things you see on the ingredients of a packet of chili powder. I'm just trying to make sure it's got enough flavor, since I did almost double it, but I didn't want to use 2 packs of chili seasoning. So you just place the lid on it and cook this, again, on high if you want to get it done quicker. If you want to let it cook a little longer, do it on low. I cooked this I believe it was about 4 or 5 hours on high. That was perfect for us. The onions still had just a little bit of bite to them, and I like that. If you really want everything good and soft, you might want to go a little longer. Like I said before, chili is always a crowd pleaser for us, and making it in the crock pot makes it even easier. So handy, very hands-off once you get everything in there. Just such a warm, comforting meal. So next up, we have the slow cooker chocolate lava cake. Now I have to say, I've never made I don't think I've ever made any kind of dessert in the crock pot. This was really cool, just how it worked and just how it turned out. We were really happy with it. So in that bowl, I've got 1 cup of flour and 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and I just mix that up. I've got 6 tablespoons of butter and then 2 ounces of chocolate chips going in here. I really wasn't sure how much 2 ounces of chocolate chips was, and I didn't look it up, so I just kind of guessed on that. So, and then I've got some sugar going in here, and you're also going to add some cocoa powder. And I realized just in a minute that I probably should just wait till I get some more liquid ingredients in there to keep stirring it, because it started getting thicker and thicker. So I've got some vanilla going in there. You're also going to add some salt, milk, and an egg yolk. And then you're going to get all that mixed up, and that kind of makes your batter for the cake part once you add your flour and baking powder mixture to it. So I think I already mentioned earlier, but I really was not sure how this was going to turn out in the crock pot, just because I've never made like a cake in the crock pot, and crock pots do tend to be more of like a moist cooking way of cooking. So I wondered, if it really would turn out cake-like, and it truly did. Like, it had that cake layer on the top, and then you have that molten lava chocolate layer on the bottom. It was so good. So have you made any crock pot desserts? I'm curious how they, what all kinds of ones there are out there that people enjoy. So definitely, if you have one that you like, I'd love to see what it is in the comments. So, let me know if you have a favorite crock pot dessert. So I've got this batter all mixed up, and now I'm going to take and spread it into my crock pot. I did butter this. It called for spraying it with cooking oil, but I didn't have anything other than olive oil. I wasn't sure if that might give it kind of a funky taste, so I just went ahead and buttered it instead. You're just going to make sure to spread that evenly. The recipe said they cooked it in a 2.5 quart slow cooker, and this is actually a 6 quart. So just make sure you get that spread evenly. This worked fine in a 6 quart, so if that's all you have, definitely it will be fine. Now once we've got that all spread in, we're going to get started on our liquid layer. I've got some cocoa powder, brown sugar, and sugar in this bowl, and I'm just going to mix those together along with 1.5 cups of hot water, and that's going to get all that dissolved, and then that's going to, like I said, comprise of your liquid layer. You pour it on top of the cake batter and you don't stir it. You let it sit. That's what's so neat about this, because the cake and the liquid layer kind of swap places. So I just feel like that's really cool how that works. This may be similar to, I've seen some other crockpot recipes for like a hot fudge cake where it makes its own fudge sauce. So that, I'm betting this is kind of similar to some of those too. So since I haven't tried them, I don't know for sure, but I think that either way you're kind of getting that you know, chocolate fudgy sauce, and it just makes it really good. So I've got that, you know, in there. Like I said, don't stir it. Go ahead and cover it and then cook it on high for 2 to 3 hours. I think mine was done around the 2-hour mark. When you lift the lid when it's done, just try to make sure you don't get too much of that water in from the lid on onto the cake. And you can see that yummy fudge sauce just bubbling up there. So when you scoop it, it's got that cake on top, and then you've got that sauce on the bottom. So make sure you get you some of that sauce to put on it as well and get it all nice and fudgy, and then top it with ice cream or whipped cream or whatever you'd like to do. This is so good. It was just, I was so surprised how this turned out. I really was wondering how a cake would turn out in the crock pot, but this was delicious. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you've enjoyed this video, I'd appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up. And if you like content like this, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on any yummy recipes. I hope you're having a blessed day, and I'll see you in the next one.